Dan, I want to ask you, as somebody who's stood for Parliament here amongst us, when you were campaigning last time around, what were the issues that people raised on the doorstep? Did they defence, spending on the health service, or was it the fact the streetlights might be switched off?
Last year, very interesting. I think it's probably a different general election campaign. Talking to Sebastian Kindersley and other people who fought in South Cambs before, probably a very different campaign to what they had 5 years previously. It's really odd how, in many cases, people were actually more, I think, afraid of the bigger national picture. So there's kind of the big debate about UKIP and its impact on the right, and with Conservatives tried to kind of work with UKIP in some way. The Scottish question came up massively, the SNP, particularly from about now, sort of early April until the election. That became a bigger issue, I think, for people. But it came down, I think, to kind of also local concerns about childcare. Could they afford their childcare in the future? The NHS question as well, would the NHS be safe? Particularly, I suppose, around the south part of the city. If you go out to Sawston, that direction, there's a lot of medical staff and they work at Addenbrooke's and they're very concerned with the NHS. And I think generally the economy was over everything. There's this real kind of fear in some ways of what happened in the past, didn't want it to happen again. And they were kind of maybe not always too sure about Labour on that account. And at the same time didn't necessarily want to trust the Conservatives with the NHS. And I think that was a big kind of shadow over everything, really, about which way they would go. And finally, one of the saddest things, I think, was the tactical voting that was going on. There were so many people who were anti-Conservative, who didn't know to vote Lib Dem or Labour because they're anti-Conservative. And I was told by people by email, but saying, I wish I could vote for you, but I don't think I can because it won't stop the Conservatives winning. And of course, it didn't work out that way because I came second.
As I say, if I remember correctly, and Phil, and obviously yourself, because you were there, Heidi Allen finished with a higher majority and share of the vote than Andrew Lansley had beforehand.
Yeah.
You finished second, having also increased the Labour vote.
Oh, massively. The Lib Dems didn't do so well, I'm afraid. But yes, that's true. However, I think the problem with our system is that many people have to tactically vote rather than probably choosing the person they want to go for.
And this is actually what we saw, I think, both in South Cambs and also in Cambridge, because the one party that we haven't mentioned in this debate so far are the Greens. Now, if you compare the number of votes they got in Cambridge City with Dr. Rupert Reed, Dr. Reed actually increased the number of votes the Greens got from just under 4,000 to just over 4,000. But if you count the total number of votes the Greens got at a local government level, it was approaching 10,000. Now, I think one of the things to look at, certainly in this election, I think in particular in wards such as Castle, Market, Petersfield, is the performance of the Greens. Will the Greens get a second councillor in the very tightly fought ward of Market, bearing in mind that there were only 7 votes?
Right, Anthony, Phil, Dan, hold that thought. We'll come back, and I'm pretty sure we'll be talking about the Greens and everyone else for that matter. As we'll go through the various wards. We'll take some travel and a song as well, and we'll do that at 22 minutes past 6.